edible to you. The Omar Kra, Ki Yidur. There's a Lashon when you swear, but it says Ki Yidur Neder. So it has to be that when you make a neder, it has to be compared to something. This answers you up. Okay, when you make a neder, it has to be related to something that you can make a neder on. So I can be makadesh, an animal, to be a korban. That would be a neder, korban lashem. And all nidorim have to fit that pattern to a degree. Ad sheyidur b'davar hanodor. You have to relate what you're making a neder now on to something that could be a neder on its own. Okay? La'afuke b'chor. To exclude the firstborn animal, the davar ha'aserhu. Because from the instant it's born, it has kedusha, and nobody can eat it until the guy who owns that flock gives that bachar to a kohen, and he has ejected, and okay, right? So that has got its intrinsic kedusha. So it doesn't. So you can't say that you can make a neder relating to a bachar. Umanda Aser. What about Reb Yaakov? We said no. If you do make such a neder on like comparing it to a bachor, then the thing you make the neder on is aser to you. It's a valid neder. Amar Kra, because the pasuk continues Lashem. It has to God in it in the pasuk. L'rabas davar aser. To include in things you can make a neder linked to things that God says you can't eat, like the bachar. Okay? Oman de Shari, what about the one who allows, that's meaning you cannot make the neder, therefore you can eat the thing. Lashem ma'avidle. What does he do with this word Lashem? It's a pretty good argument. We have an extra word in the pasuk. So anything I make a neder on and anything God tells me I can't eat is a logical interpretation of the pasuk. So how does he do with that word? Meboile damaspis bachatas uba asham. He brings to that to include on things I could make a neder on a chatas and an asham. Okay, Umara Isa Larabas Chatas Va'asham Laitzi Es Habachor. So why does he say? So we want to add in a chatas and we want to add in an asham on the things you can relate a neder to, but you do not want to add in a bachor. So marba ani chatas va'ashan, I throw in the chatas and the ashum in the list, because if I'm mechuyev chatas, how do I do it? I says a lie, a carbon. I say that shepsel is going to be my chatas, or that animal is going to be my asham. I verbally turn it from chulin to kachim. So that's a neder. Okay? And since shehu maspis beneder, those become designated as kachim utilizing the neder formulation. Umoitza ani es a bachor, and I leave bachor off my list of kachim that you can relate a neder to. Why? Shehu kodesh mimei imo. Because it's intrinsically kodesh from the instant it leaves its mother's womb. And you do not have to say anything. Now, the question's about to be asked. Umanda oiser, one who says the neder is valid and you can't eat the thing. Bacher nami must be so. Why does he allow you to link it to a bachor? the neder who, because that guy does make a neder. Now, it's not, this is a formulaic neder. It's not a true neder. I don't know how better to explain it. The animal is automatically has kedusha the instant it's born. Nevertheless, the Torah does say that the owner of the flock should verbalize that this bachar is kodesh. Okay, so the loophole here for the people who say that you can link a neder to a bachor is, even though it's sanctified by God, because it's instantaneous, nevertheless, the owner does verbalize through a neder that it has kedusha. Mishum Rebbe Aimer, because they say in the name of Rebbe, Menayin lenolad bachar b'toch beso. If you have a newborn animal in your household, in other words, on your farm, on your ranch, mitzvah lahakdisho, there is an obligation, nevertheless, to verbalize that it has kedusha shenemar hazakar takdish. You must sanctify the little male baby. So it does have a verbalization, even though if you left out the verbalization, it would still be kaideh. Oman de shari, one who says, when he says it's shari, that means the neder is invalid. And therefore, if you compare a lamb chop to a bachor lamb chop, you can still eat it, right? Kilo makdish lay, even if you didn't verbalize, milo makdish, isn't the animal kodesh automatically? So that's the two sides of the argument. Now, we're finished with that. What?
Verbalize it, there would be a tent. They're all balling in the field. He doesn't know what you're
I don't know what we're talking. Are we talking? We're talking about Meiser Behema now, or are we?
This becomes a bachar.
Yes, yeah.
No, a Meiser. Well, no, a tenth is called Meiser Behema. That's not a bachar. No, it's called Meiser Behema. And every animal, and you do verbalize to the extent that if you mess up, and okay. Okay, fine. It's code for 9, 10, 11. All right. So, but a bachor, as a matter, I mean, since you raised this question, to Bisman Hazeh, it becomes a humongous problem. Because if you own a cow and she gives birth to a male calf, that calf has kedusha, and yet we have no Beis HaMikdash. We can't do anything with that. Okay, so what do? You sell a chelek in your cow to a non-Jew. So now you have you are shutfis with the non-Jew, and it loses kedushas bachor. But if you didn't get around to doing that, or if you didn't use a proper, you did it, but you only shook hands, he didn't give you money, you didn't do a kinyan, meshicha, whatever, then you got a problem. And but you have to leave it alone till it gets a mum. I mean, and you're not allowed to encourage it to get a mum. You can't take it to the edge of a cliff and say, pat it on the butt and say, go for a walk. You can't do that. All right. So in any event, now we're going back to the string of possibilities for associating things with a carbon. But now we're not going to associate them quite as directly. Okay, we have this list. Mi imra, if it I'm making my cup of coffee. This is a bli neder. I'm making my cup of coffee like a lamb. So it's understood that I'm making a neder, and the lamb I'm talking about is a lamb that was made kodesh, right? So therefore, I can no longer drink this coffee, and my bracha I made before was a bracha levatala. Okay, or kedirim. when they were going to bring korbanos, the animals were held in stalls in the Azora and were checked for a period of 4 days to be sure they were free. So if I say this coffee is like the stalls in the temple, that's a sufficient association to korbanos that I can't drink the coffee. What? It smells that bad. And we had the rest, like logs. We had like the eitzim. We had like the aish, the fire that's put on the mizbeach, like the mizbeach itself, or like the kalim of the mizbeach. This cup of coffee to me is like the Kohen's shovel. Okay, all of those are legitimate nedarim because that list of artifacts is sufficiently close to the concept of korban that everybody knows what you're talking about. Okay, now we're going to talk about dikduk issues. Okay, we had one before and we're going to return to it. When we said la korban with a patach, we had the concept that that's really a contraction of low korban, and such a netter would not work because it was a double negative. We did this like a few days ago, right? If anybody remembers. Okay, but le korban would be a legitimate. So dikduk counts, right? Tana. Imra le imra ke imra. If I add a lamed or a kaf in front of the word, okay? Dirim, la dirim, kid dirim, or I add a lamed or a kaf in front of those words. Eitzim, la eitzim, ba or ka eitzim, ishim, la ishim, ka ishim, mizbeach, la mizbeach, kim mizbeach, heichel, la heichel, ka heichel. All of these words with the core word was on the list. Li Yerushalayim, ki Yerushalayim. Okay, kulon sha'eichel lecha. If I then say, of your food which I used to be able to eat, sir, that's a legitimate neder, and I can no longer eat it. So at this brisa seems to be saying you don't parse the dikduk because it said la Yerushalayim, and we did not make it a Yerushalayim. I'm sorry, it said la mizbeach. Okay, sir. La and you, I will not now. But what if he finished up with lo ochel lecha? So it becomes a double negative. I will not, your mizbeach food, I'm not going to eat. So then it's a negative. And remember, Reb Meir says you can't assume a positive based on the negative. So therefore, mutter, you could eat those foods. So the structure is important. You have to say that food which I am associating your food to these kodesh things. But if you say, I'm loosely translating, I'm not associating your food with these kodesh things, then you haven't made a neder. You're stipulating a fact. It's not a neder, okay? So let's look at the brisa a little bit more closely. Man tishma'inan le delo shani le imra le imra ke imra. The Tana that doesn't say that the prefix letters make a difference. Who is that? Reb Meir. Reb Meir he. Amos Sefer, but let's look at the end of the brisa. V'kulon lo echel lecha mutter. If I say I'm not associating your food, then I can still eat it. Okay, that is also then Reb Meir. If you're saying that the whole Mishnah is Reb Meir, so that's difficult, right? V'hatanan, because we learned elsewhere from Reb Meir once before, la korban la ochel lecha, your korban, I will not. All right, this is not a korban, and I won't eat it. I mean, it's a double negative, and I could eat it, but Reb Meir oiser. But according to Rebbe Meir, to the Brisa, Rebbe Meir says you can't eat it. Now, 4 pages ago, we learned that Rebbe Meir said you could eat it, that the double negative cancels it out. So Omer Rebbe Abba says, Nase ke Omer. We pretend, set it up. We make it like. So we pretend that the guy actually said, Le korban yehi lefikach lo ochel lecho. We stick in the word lefikach to double negative it, to double negative it, whatever. Because like a korban, therefore I won't eat your food. Now it's a legitimate a neder because I put in a lefikach. Okay, so if I say le like a baby lamb, I will not eat your food. To me is like a baby lamb, meaning like a korban. Lefikach, therefore I won't eat it. And it takes the tinge of the double negative away. So, but nonetheless, how come Reb Meir doesn't hold over here is different than over there? Lo kasha, not a problem. Oh, here is the difference. The Amar lo imra. When you could say la imra, in other words, you could mean the la imra to mean not a lamb, or you could say la imra. I'm trying to explain this as clearly as I can. Sometimes when you put the lamed in front of the word, you just are talking about the imra and the lamed's there. Sometimes you're expressing 2 words in a contraction. Okay, there are 2 possibilities. Okay, the amra lo imra, vaho, and in the brisa, the amra le imra. Even if you put a patach, we interpret it as if it was a shva. Okay, I can't be clear. I don't know how to be. If anybody does not understand, we'll try and talk it out. They're being Sydney.
A lot like a car.
Okay, so that's 1 word instead of la imra as 2 words. But you could do it both ways. So before we said Reb Meir said one thing, and over here we're saying Reb Meir said another thing because we're teaching it 2 different ways. Okay. Okay, next Mishnah. Now we're going through, we had the long, yeah.
Let's say
You're what? Yeah.
what he meant.
He probably said bli neder later. But again, it doesn't matter what you think. It matters what he thinks when he says it. And presumably, remember, for a neder to be effective, the verbalization is 99% of the trip, but he has to have the machshava too. So if you're not sure what he meant, you could say to him exactly what did you mean? And then he'll say, I meant I'm not eating your food. Don't invite me again.
Testify on what you hear and what you see, not on what it's.
No. It's the other way around with a neder. A neder, the word, you need to structure it correctly, but you also need the machshava. So if I am a witness to a neder is not, I saw you take the money, or I saw you lend him the money. You have to know what his machshava is. And if it's not clear, you have to ask him. I'm not a posek, I'm not paskening, but that would be how I would interpret it. Because since we see a case with la korban could be interpreted as low korban, and I'm not making a neder, or it could be interpreted as le korban, and I am making a neder. It's possible that after the guys whose food we're talking about walks off, did you really mean to make a neder about his food, or did you just want to get out of going there on Shabbos? And he'll answer you, right? Okay. What? You want to say something? Okay. So ha'omer, now we have more words. Korban. If I say I am being menader this like a korban, but I don't say a lamed, I don't say anything. I just say korban. And I also do not say lashem. I just say korban. I say ola. I say mincha. This is sounding a lot like kokeli. Chatas, taida, shlomim. Sha'ani oichel that I normally eat from you. Those are all valid nidarim, and the food is aser. Rabbi Yehuda matir. Rabbi Yehuda says you can, because he didn't say la korban, lik korban, and or kik korban, or he didn't say lashem. Hey, so he says you're not specific enough. Okay, now we're going to make the list even longer. Ha korban, kik korban, korban. This sounds like it might be repetitive, but we'll see that it's really not. The korban, like a korban, or again, just korban. And then he says that related to the food of yours, then it's also, it's a legitimate neder. Now, it seems to be that we said the korban twice, and Mishnayos don't usually do that. Okay, la korban, lo ochel lecha, but like your korban, but la, so it could be not like a korban, low korban, lo ochel lecha. So Reb Meir still is oser. Reb Meir says, I don't care, you can't, the double negative is not a problem. But the implication is that Reb Yehuda would say it's a problem because we gave Stam earlier and now we name Reb Meir. Okay, so Katane ha-korban, kik-korban, korban, she'ochel lecha aser. The ratio of the Mishnah has three forms of the word korban and concludes, which is like your food, and I can't eat your food anymore. So Stana Tami to Reb Meir. So obviously that section of the Mishnah is also Reb Meir, right? On the other hand, Tanaka Reb Meir, that's like Reb Meir, Deloshani Le Ben Amira La Amira, because in the previous Mishnah, he didn't make a distinction between all the prefixes on the word Amira, lamb. Okay, the Rebbe Meir, the Katani, but what about when we learn elsewhere from Reb Meir? Ha-korban she'ochel lecha aser, the food that I eat from yours is forbidden. V'hasanya, but we have a brisa that says, Moedim chachamim l'Reb Yehuda, and here the word chachamim really means Reb Meir, because the machlokes in this Mishnayos are between Reb Meir and Reb Yehuda. So when we say that somebody acknowledges the Reb Yehuda, we mean Reb Meir at least is among the group that acknowledge. If it's not him alone, they acknowledge. Ba'omer ha korban, ha oila, ha mincha, ha chatas, she'ochel lecha, shemuter. That those foods are acceptable. You haven't really made a neder, and you can still eat the guy's food. What you're simply saying is Your wife is such a great cook, like a korban. I'm delighted to eat her food.
Is your wife like a coven or your food is like?
No, her baked goods. I like minchas.
Oh, it's very-
Okay, that's what the Mishnah, that's what the Gemara says. Okay, lo kasha. So we now have a refuge, Reb Meir going along with Reb Yehuda, right? Lo kasha, hada amar ha korban, and hada amar ha korban. Again, we're going to the same answer we had before. Sometimes you mean it as two words, and sometimes you mean it as one word, as a contraction. Okay? So my time, Chai Korban the Omer, what is the rationale that Rebbe Meir over here would agree that the statement is not a neder? Because he says you're saying it as two words, Chai Korban ka Omer. That's what you meant to say. That like a korban, like, it's literally the life of a korban. But it's a language that we don't use, so it's hard to explain it more clearly. Okay, so Katani la korban lo eichel lecha Rebbe Meir Oiser. Remember, we had this argument about the lamed patach, and Rebbe Meir says it's a valid valid neder, and you cannot eat the food. But Vaha lesle Rebbe Meir Michlal lav asa shomeahin. But they translated from the implication of a negative, you derive a positive. I translated two negatives makes a positive. Okay, what about that rule? So therefore, Reb Meir should, by all rights, say that la korban means low korban. It's a double negative and it's not a neder. So Omer Rav Abba says, you know what? Nase ka'omer le korban yehe lefikach la'achal lecha. I say, I pretend the patach is a shva and I stick in a lefikach. So that fixes it up. And we can hold, like Reb Meir saying, that the double negative is really not a double negative and it's not a korban. Okay? Ha'omer lachaveru. Reuven says to Shimon, Kainem pi medaber imecha. Like a konem, my mouth speak to you. Okay, a little setup term. You can make a neder or well, that's the problem. It doesn't say that. I'm trying to translate it exactly. I understand, but I intentionally did it the way I did it. I cannot make a neder on something that has no mamoshes.
It's coming out of his mouth.
No.
That has even less mamoshes. Sorry about that, Ruth. If, listen to me clearly, I cannot make a neder that I won't speak, because that's not a thing. You can't hold the words I say in your hand and say, here's the word he. But I can make a neder on my mouth, because my mouth is something I can touch. So if this means I'm making a neder that my mouth will not communicate with you, that could be a valid neder. But if I'm making a neder that I will not speak to you, that's not a neder. Because the words are, because words you can hold on to. So what am I? All right. So that's what we're getting into. Kainem pi medaber imecha. My mouth speak with you. Yad aise imcha. My hand do things with you. Ragle mahaleches imcha, my foot walk with you. Asur, they are nedarim. No, because we're going to learn, the Gemara is going to say, I'm not uttering the words. I'm uttering using my mouth to communicate with you. I could write you a note. Those are words too. But I cannot use my mouth. I cannot use my hand to help you fix your door. Okay? The work I can't hold, but the hand is a physical thing. The foot is so the netter is on my feet. If I was in a wheelchair, I could roll alongside you. Because the netter is on my feet, not on the being next to you and moving forward. Is that not clear? All right, so we'll see it all inside, okay? So, okay. V'raminahu, let's challenge that. Chaymer shavuos min nidarim. There is an aspect of a shavua where it's got more power, it's more chomer than a neder. And the nedarim me shavuos. And the other way around, there's an aspect in which nedarim have more power than a shavua. Chomer, but nedarim, here is the pekayach of a neder. שהנדורים חולם על המצווה בקרה, I can't see, is that a base? Kibarishus, okay, kibarishus, of course. All right, supposing the shipment of lulavim and esrogim don't come, okay, and Schwartz is the only guy in shul that has arba minim. Okay, so if I make a neder that I'll have nothing to do with Schwartz, then I can't use his lulav and esrog, because even though it's a mitzvah, I've barred anything to do with Schwartz. But if I made a shavua that I won't have anything to do with Schwartz, I can use his lulav and esrog, because a shavua only works on a rishus, not on a mitzvah. Okay? Masha ein kain b'shvuas, which is the other way around with shvuas. Achamer b'shvuas, the stringency or the greater power to a shavua. Shahashavuas cholos al davar sheyesh bo mamash. A shavua works on anything that is tangible, okay? And on something that is also intangible. So if I made a shavua that I won't talk to you, then I can't talk to you. But so we have to now understand this all very Mashen came by Nidarim. Nidarim only can be on physical things. Okay, so Omer Rav Yehuda, but Omer, it's as if the guy said, Ye oser pi ledibruri. Let my mouth be prohibited from communicating with you. Okay, Yadei lama'asehem. Let my hands be forbidden to do things with you. Ragle kehilucha. Let my feet be prohibited from walking next to you. And daikanami, we can see that that's actually the interpretation in the text itself. Tekatani pi medaber imach. My mouth from speaking with you. The subject of this sentence is mouth. I'm not saying I'm making a koinem that I won't speak to you. That would not work, because the speaking is intangible. Okay, and Ruvain will pick up with the Mishnah tomorrow. Okay, Hadran Allah Kol kinuye. Your mouth is forming the words.
Yeah,
With what you're asking, all right.
it's indirect.
I hear you. You'd have to ask the post. All right, if you made that that neder, you'd have to ask a post. But I will tell